Utah has their sights set on some quarterbacks, one from the 2025 class, one from the 2026. We're talking about what they could add to the program on today's Locked On Utes.
You are Locked On Utes, your daily podcast on the Utah Utes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for making Locked On Utes your first listen every single day. We are available on all platforms, including YouTube and wherever you may get your podcast. If this is your first time listening to our show, make sure you like and subscribe. Love interacting with all of you in the YouTube comments as well as on social media, where you can follow our show at Locked On Utes on X. Today's episode of Locked On Utes is brought to you by FanDuel. You can make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 with any winning $5 bet. You can visit FanDuel.com/locked-on to get started. My name is JT Wistricll, former intern inside the University of Utah Athletic Department. Excited to be joined by college sports writer Austin Eames on today's show. And Austin, we're talking quarterbacks. There are some exciting quarterbacks on Utah's roster, and there's some exciting ones that Utah's looking to adding. I want to talk about a guy from the 2025 class as well as a guy from the 2026 class, both of whom Utah are currently pursuing and trying to get to land with their program. The first guy I want to talk about is 6'4", 225-pound quarterback who is named New Mexico Gatorade Player of the Year, Cam Dyer. He's a three-star quarterback, 6'5", 205, and I think his potential is incredibly high. Austin, we can talk specifics in a moment, but I like the size, I like the arm, I like the dual threat ability. What stood out to you about Dyer on tape?
He's really good, man. He's a great dual threat quarterback, and that's evident by him winning Gatorade Gatorade Player of the Year for New Mexico. I think he had over 4,300 yards, 55 total touchdowns last season. I think 26 of them were rushing touchdowns. So as far as dual threat goes, I mean, that's crazy ability. And he's a tri-sport athlete. He plays basketball too. I saw some highlights of him yamming down huge dunks. He was a 4x200 state champion in track, has a over 22-foot long jump. So, I mean, athletic specimen. And you said it. He's 6'4", 6'5", over 200 pounds. He's only going to keep growing. Like we said, he's still young. So, yeah, tons of upside. Really exciting.
Yeah, he's got elite potential. I'll say this about him. So when I turn on the tape, you mentioned some of the numbers, and I like a lot of things about this guy. I think he's got pretty good mechanics. It could always be improved on, just only a high school guy, but still pretty good. He's fearless. I mean, he's got a nice arm. I love the size too. It is really hard to take him down because of his physical frame. He's athletic. I mean, he can juke guys in the open field. He can run right by them. You're talking about a guy with those dual threat abilities, strong arm, can make defenders miss in the open field. This is a guy with, I think, really strong potential. I think I'm surprised he's only a three-star. That's where I'm sure that there are some things there where he still has some time and things he needs to do to grow into. But man, when Cam Dyer is at his best, he's one of the better quarterbacks I've watched in the class of 2025 here recently. And I think he would be a great get for the University of Utah.
Yeah, I agree. Whether it's quarterback or another position, I saw he did a interview with a local news outlet, and he actually said that Utah and Texas Tech were recruiting him at safety. So I don't know if the U's continuing to recruit him at safety or quarterback. I think it seems like he could do both at a pretty high level, just with the athleticism. But he had an official visit with Utah in March, has an official visit coming up in June. And I think he's also going to be an early graduate. I saw that he's going to graduate in December. So if he were to commit to the U, he could come in early, kind of like Isaac Wilson did, and just learn at whatever position he's at. So yeah, it'd be really awesome. It would be a huge pickup for Utah. Like you said, he has a 3-star ranking. I don't know if that's just because New Mexico's under recruited or what. I think he plays higher than a 3-star, but yeah, really interesting. And I think before the podcast, I told you I was going to maybe do a player comparison. As far as quarterback goes, he reminds me of a certain player. Maybe doesn't have the same ability as this player, but Cam Newton.
I knew you were going to say Cam. That makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. That actually does. That does. Keep going.
Yeah, Cam was 6'4", 232 when he committed to Florida in 2007. Also has that kind of compact, quick release. They both wore number one, and both, get this, both ran a 4.59 40-yard dash. So they're basically the same player. Utah's getting a new Cam Newton, my bad. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, I think he plays a lot like Cam Newton. And if he could become Cam Newton, that'd be great. But we'll see. I think that's just a fun one.
I totally see what you're talking about when you say Cam Newton, because we are not saying that this guy is going to walk in and win a Heisman Trophy in college football. You know, any of these guys have a chance to do. So Cam Dyer, go knock yourself out, win a Heisman. But when I say shake off guys in the pocket, I think of Ben Roethlisberger. I think of Cam Newton. And the reason I drift more to Cam Newton than Roethlisberger is because of how mobile he is. You guys, there are only so many quarterbacks that big who run that fast in the open field. You know who did that? Cam Newton really dang well. Cam Newton did it at the NFL level. But there's a reason you said Cam Dyer right now looks like Cam Newton. He's doing it at the high school level, where he's obviously better than a lot of these guys, just like Cam Newton, college and the NFL, was better than a lot of these guys too. So that's where I think you see a lot of the similarities there between how dominant they were at their respective levels, because guys can't tackle him. And this speed is just rare. You don't see many guys who have that type of athleticism, speed, and the arm strength is there. I mentioned fearless too. Like, he took a hit on his very first plays, a great throw out ahead of him too. So I don't know. I still think he's got a chance to be a quarterback too. And when you talk about the other schools interested in him, you got UTEP, New Mexico, Houston, New Mexico State, Arizona State, Nevada, Utah State, Dartmouth, Texas Tech, ULM. So a lot of different schools. Like you said, some of them maybe more so looking at him for safety, but man, he wouldn't be the first guy who goes to school for maybe thinking he's going to play defense and ends up settling back in on offense, one of his more natural positions. I really like Dyer. I'm not saying he's going to come in and beat out Isaac Wilson. Isaac Wilson is obviously still the front runner to be the 2025 guy for Utah. You know, Wyatt Becker's the guy who's going to be coming up to Utah too. He's another guy that I wouldn't count out to be Utah's starting quarterback come 2025. But I think Dyer is good. He'll have a chance. I really think you don't see quarterbacks this big who can move this well. And he shows some nice accuracy at times too. So I think he's got a shot. And I'm excited. Hopefully Utah can get their hands on him, because I think he would have a chance to be a special player. But I'm glad that he is Utah's already offered him. And Utah also offered this other quarterback in the class of 2026. That's right. Utah's getting really ahead of things. I want to talk about what the University of Utah is doing recruiting wise, getting ahead. But first, I want to talk to you all about one of the sponsors of today's episode of Locked On Utes. It's our friends at Yahoo Finance. Wouldn't it be great if you could see all of your investments and retirement accounts in one place? Yahoo Finance, you can consolidate your views from multiple accounts into one hub and access the expert analysis you need to tend to your entire portfolio with confidence. Let's get straight to the point. You want to grow your portfolio to deal with the rising cost of inflation, to pay off your debt or your mortgage, pretty much anything standing in the way of you and financial freedom, right? Well, with Yahoo Finance, you can get access to the news, data, and tools that you need in order to help you reach that financial freedom. When it comes to your financial future, you think you've done it all. You've saved, you've researched, you've invested all that you can. Now you need to take those investments to the next level by using what every great financial person uses: Yahoo Finance. They are the number one finance destination, producing a holistic look at the financial news cycle, including breaking news, original editorial perspectives, analyst ratings, independent research, customizable charts, and so much more. Whether you're a seasoned investor or you're just looking for extra guidance, Yahoo Finance gives you all the tools and data you need in one place. With a community of over 90 million users each month, their real strength is helping you on your way to financial success. For a comprehensive financial news and analysis, you can visit the brand behind every great investor, yahoofinance.com, the number one financial destination. yahoofinance.com. That's yahoofinance.com. All right, Austin, let's talk about our next quarterback here. Oscar Rios is also a guy that Utah is interested in. And we mentioned, Dyer's a 2025 guy. Rios, a little more on the younger side, 6'3", 175, class of 26 from Downey High School. This is a guy where, what do you want to see when he's a class of 26? Potential, even more so than Dyer. And I see potential. I see a guy who's quick, who has nice pocket awareness, who can zip balls into tight windows. Got a lighter frame, but that's where he's still young. Got time to build and work on that too. Does a good job. He's willing to stand in, though, and take a couple of hits, right? He can make some throws off platform, throws balls in tight windows. I love that he throws the ball out so his receiver can just run under it and catch it, kind of drop it in the breadbasket perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
I think he does a good job of that. And like I said, just a guy who's willing to take hits, make a throw. Also really athletic. He's another guy who can get out in the open field, scramble and run right past you too. Rios is another guy with strong potential. And we saw last year, can never have too many quarterbacks if you're Utah. So I love that they already offered Rios.
Yeah, I agree. Get the offer in early for a guy this talented. I think he's more of a pro-style quarterback than Dyer is. Dyer's definitely a dual threat guy, but that's not to say Rios isn't dual threat. He had 767 yards and 7 touchdowns on the ground last season, which, keep in mind, was his sophomore season, so he's still very young. But he completed almost 74% of his passes last season for 2,600 yards and 23 touchdowns. And I mean, what jumps out to me is just the ball jumps out of his hand, and his arm strength is amazing, and his throw in the run. I think that his throw in the run is his greatest asset. He was so accurate. It seemed when he was climbing out of the pocket, just chucking balls, chucking them deep, accurate, leading the receivers. I don't think I saw him throw many. Obviously, we watched highlights, but I don't think I saw him underthrow many of his receivers on deep balls. And I think he's being coached by one of the best quarterback coaches in the industry, Danny Hernandez. He's actually a guy that's also coaching Wyatt Becker, Utah's 2025 quarterback prospect. But Danny Hernandez has coached Julian Sayin. He's coached Malachi Nelson. He's coached Bryce Young. And guess who else he coached? Caleb Williams, the number 1 pick last year in the draft. So I think if you have a guy like that coaching Rios, he's only going to continue to develop. Like we said, he's young. He has plenty of time to learn. But, I mean, you said it, potential. There's a reason he has a 4-star as a sophomore or as a rising sophomore. He has tons and tons of potential. So I'm glad Utah got the offer in. It's going to be competitive. He has a ton of offers from schools like Arizona, Kansas, Auburn, Arizona State, Washington. So it's going to be a battle to get him. I think he was also coached by Noah Fafita's father, Les Fafita. So maybe there's a little Arizona connection there. Hopefully not. But yeah, I would love for Rios to come to the U.
Yeah, he's an exceptional talent, and I love that you brought up the school's already interested in him, right? Like, that's where you know if you're Utah, you're doing something right. If you're interested in a quarterback, and all of these other quarterback schools that have done a good job, like a Washington comes to mind right away, right? Like some of the better teams looking at quarterbacks in the country. And I know there's a new coaching staff there, but Jed Fish did pretty well at Arizona, like you just mentioned, Fafita. So I think that makes a lot of sense that he's already interested there. But yeah, I mean, for Rios to be like a whole year younger than Dyer and already be showing all of this potential and talent, I think is really exciting. So I think we both agree he's got a chance to be a special player at the next level. And it's going to be interesting to watch and see how his game develops over the years, because it'd be a great get for Utah in the 2026 recruiting class. But let's look at the 2025 college football season. So factoring in the quarterbacks that Utah is going to get, let's just talk about this Utah quarterback room. So gone is Cam Rising, and in you have Isaac Wilson, you have Brandon Rose, and you also have a guy in Sam Heward, who just transferred in. And that's not even without mentioning the guy who we've kind of referenced a few times now, Wyatt Becker, who I know you're incredibly high on Austin. Moose Bingham, who's come on this show a few times, breaks down the collegiate game as well as anyone I know, is incredibly high on too. I think this is a really strong quarterback room for Utah. I feel good. If any of these guys win the job, I'm feeling optimistic about that. I'm feeling like, okay, they beat out some stiff competition. Some Wilson, the 4-star, Rose, who's been in the program for a while, Heward, guys coming from Cal Poly, bounced around a little bit, a veteran who's trying for another shot, another opportunity at the University of Utah. And then Becker, a really talented recruit who can do some really nice things. So I feel like Utah's quarterback battle in 2025 is shaping up to be a really good one. And I feel good about all the options currently that Utah has, because in order to win the job, you got to beat them out, the other guys.
Yeah, I can't say it much better, JT. I think it's going to be a really interesting year in terms of the quarterback battle next season, but I don't think there's many ways you can go wrong. Obviously, we have Isaac Wilson, one of the most hyped Utah prospects in a really long time. And I mean, he showed it during the spring game. He was the second best quarterback that day behind Cam Rising. He put on a clinic, he put on a show, and he showed that he can compete. Obviously, it's a spring game, so take it with a grain of salt. But He's going to have a year to continue learning under Cam, continue learning under Sam. But yeah, Isaac Wilson definitely has the most upside. You talk about a guy that was a 4-star prospect. Obviously, like I said, learning from Ryzen. I think he's going to have tons of upside. But Quard has the most experience. Obviously, a guy that is coming from Cal Poly, had over 2,000 yards last season, 18 touchdowns. I think coming into this year, he's the third highest graded returning Big 12 quarterback or something like that, behind Shedeur Sanders and West Virginia's quarterback, Garrett Green, which is insane. But yeah, and then you also have Wyatt Becker joining the room. He's 6'2", 180. Like you said, I'm really high on him. He has a really pretty deep ball that he showed last season in high school at Sierra Canyon. And he was throwing some lasers all season long. And like I said, he's also with the quarterback guru, Danny Hernandez. So I think, like Wilson, he has a ton of upside. So I feel like the odd man out, and I feel terrible saying this, is Brandon Rose. I don't know where Brandon Rose is going to fit in next season.
Well, that's where he has the playbook, right? That's the one thing that Rose has on all of these guys. He's been in the system longer. He has the best understanding. He knows what it takes to make it through a Utah spring camp. So that's the one thing. And I know Wilson now does too, but Rose has yet again a year on him. Wilson he hasn't even had his freshman season yet. So that's where Rose has been here a few years now. And I'm really excited to watch this battle play out. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I think there's great options. And I love that Utah is looking at and continuing to try and add recruits for the future, because you never know who's going to transfer out, who's going to get hurt. That's just the reality we live in when it comes to college football today. So I think Utah is doing a great job keeping their bases covered with all of these various guys there. So props to them for building a strong rapport with these quarterbacks early on. And it'd be interesting to see if Dyer, Rios, and who all is on this roster come 2026 in the quarterback room, because if college football today has taught us anything, it's probably going to look drastically different. So we'll keep an eye on that and see how it's going to go there. But I want to talk about the men's basketball transfer portal too, because the Running Utes obviously trying to retool their roster ahead of an extremely tough Big 12 gauntlet of a season they're going to be having to reckon with coming up this coming fall in the 24-25 season. We're going to talk about them in one moment. But first, I want to talk to you about our fantastic friends at FanDuel. It's winner take all time in the NBA and NHL, and FanDuel is giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and more. You can visit FanDuel.com/lockedon, make every playoff shot count, and that's capital LNO, one word, and locked on. FanDuel, America's number one sports book. And speaking of FanDuel, so many great games to get in on right now. I got my eyes on the NBA playoffs. Boston Celtics, Indiana Pacers. Can Boston overcome the loss of Kristaps Porzingis? Can Indiana shock the world and be an NBA Finals team when no one thought they would even make it to this point? How about in the Western Conference? I'm a huge Timberwolves fan. Can my Wolves keep it going? They've kept finding a way this far, right? Or is Luka going to prove that he's one of the three best players in the NBA right now, and maybe the best player remaining? I might lean towards Luka saying that he is. So lots of fun things in the world of the NBA. Make sure you guys head over to FanDuel today to check it all out. You can visit FanDuel.com to look at odds and to find out where the best bets are for you today. All right, Austin, talk about this Utah men's basketball portal. Running Utes are looking at a few guys. Ezra Asur. They've also expressed interest in a guy like Issa Muhammad. And I'm really happy that Utah continues to just look and add talent. And all of these guys, I think, would be welcome additions, because we are talking about a Utah men's basketball program that has only one guy on the roster who averaged double figures last year. And a guy like, I'll start with Asur first. I mean, he averaged 11 points a game, 4 rebounds, and 1 assist while shooting 51% overall, 37% from 3 too, which is pretty decent as well when you're talking about the big guy, right? 6'8", 247 pounds. But I think he's got the chance to be successful. So Ezra Asur is one of the guys I got my eyes on. But just as you look at the men's basketball transfer portal of all the rumored guys, who sticks out to you?
Yeah, well, before I get into that, I'll just start by, I think Utah's done a good job with what they can, getting Muro Little, Zach Keller, Mason Madsen, Keanu Dawes. I mean, those are some big names. We talk about Muro Little. Obviously, he didn't do as much as you would have hoped but at Baylor last season, but he's young, and I think he's going to come in, be a really good guard alongside Gabe Madsen. Keanu Dawes, forward at Rice, he's coming in. He's going to be great. I think he's going to be a really good big man for the Utes. Add some scoring to the team, which they're in dire need of. But I really like a guy, they call him Mongolian Mike from University of San Francisco. I think it's Mike Shirov-Jamps. He's a 6'8" guard. How often do you hear that? 6'8" guard. Yeah. That's seems really cool. But he's down to 3 teams right now, Utah being one of them. The other 2 is Illinois and St. Mary's, and he has a lot of potential, a lot of upside. They call him one of the best passers in collegiate basketball, and you watch his highlights, and he's just that. He makes some passes. He kind of looks like Jokic out there, just tossing balls, and you're like, how the heck did you see that? How did you do that? But he averaged 5 points as a freshman at Dayton last season. As I said, he played at USF. He shot 42% from the field and 36 from 3. And prior to committing to USF, he was thinking about going to the NBA draft, but he didn't. He came back to college, and now he's thinking about Utah. I think he would be a huge get. Obviously, Utes already have Miro Little, Gabe Madsen, but I think Mike would be a great addition to the room as a big guard. Adds a lot of playmaking. So I think he's a really good guy. We'll see if Utah can get him.
Yeah, a lot of these guys got some talent. I will say, for the information I found on Azur Osser, I want to give Fan Nation all Utes credit for publishing that out there, because they were the ones who I saw first report it, and as they did with a lot of these guys as well too. So they were on top of that. But going to be fun to see what the men's basketball team can do with all of these transfers, and to see what Utah football can do with their transfers as well, because they got a lot of guys they're looking at. So always fun and crazy offseason with the way the transfer portal is operating now. Austin, thank you for joining us.
Of course. Thanks for having me, JT. I really appreciate it.
No problem. That's going to do it for today's edition of Locked On Utes. We appreciate all of you for tuning in, and we'll be back with you tomorrow talking more things Utah athletics.